Good evening, it's only 5. Supreme Court gives its verdict on President Maithripala Sirisena's term and says he can be in office only for 5 years.
We should have another inquiry to verify whether President's term of 5 years starts from the January 8th or April 22nd.
Drug bust. Sri Lanka destroys its largest seizure of cocaine worth 16.4 billion rupees. President and Prime Minister witnesses the event. The digital divide. Sri Lanka and India signs MOU on information technology and electronics during the visit of India's Union Minister.
You always say we love challenging India.
Strengthening regulations. Deputy Minister Dr. Harsha De Silva suggests major amendments should be introduced to Sri Lanka's monetary laws in order to establish governance and autonomy of the central bank.
That has been a conflict that has existed in the central bank since the day the EPF was introduced.
And in international headlines, peace in the Yellow Sea. North and South Korea held working-level talks today in the truce village of Panmunjom to discuss the participation in the Winter Olympics due next month. It's Monday, the 15th of January 2018. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us here on First at 9. I'm Mahesh Johnny. We want to welcome all our viewers from across Sri Lanka and around the world. We begin with our lead story tonight. The Supreme Court today notified its determination on the term of office of President Maithripala Sirisena to be 5 years. President's media division stated that the decision was notified following a request made by the President recently.
The President's term in office was reduced from 6 years earlier to 5 with the adoption of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution after President Maithripala Sirisena assumed office following victory in the presidential election of January 8, 2015. In this backdrop, President Maithripala Sirisena requested the Supreme Court to declare its verdict on whether his term ends within 5 or 6 years of assuming office as per provisions of the Constitution. Despite the Constitution of 1978 vesting a 6-year term to the presidency, the recently passed 19th Amendment limits it to 5 years. Issuing a communique, the President's media unit clarified the grounds to the request, stating that the President decided to consult the Supreme Court on the duration of his term in office due to possible complications that would arise from the 19th Amendment. Accordingly, the 5-member bench chaired by Chief Justice Priyasad Depp and comprising Supreme Court Judge Eva Vanasundara, Buwanekalu Vihara, K.T. Chitrasiri and Sisiri Diabru concluded the open court deliberation on January 11th. The deliberation was directed to President Maithripala Sirisena yesterday. In the meantime, during a media briefing, civil organization CAFE expressed that the determination of the Supreme Court is rather unclear.
According to the Constitution and the legal arguments which we made, the President's term starts from January 8, but the reference given in this context seems like we should have another inquiry to verify whether the President's term of 5 years starts from the day he got elected or is that the date which was implemented, the 19th Amendment, April 22nd, it is not clear on which date the term ends. I won't be surprised if the President referred this to the Supreme Court to determine how long he can stay as the President.
Sri Lanka and India today inked 2 agreements and entered into a memorandum of understanding in the fields of information technology and electronics. The signing of these agreements took place with the participation of Indian Union Minister of Law and Justice and Electronic and Information Technology Ravi Shankar Prasad and Minister of Telecommunication and Digital Infrastructure Harin Fernando. The Indian minister, who began a state visit in Sri Lanka yesterday, also called on President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe today.
Commencing his 3-day visit to Sri Lanka, Indian Minister of Law and Justice and Electronic and Information Technology Ravi Shankar Prasad arrived in the country yesterday. He met with his Sri Lankan counterpart, Minister Harin Fernando, at the Ministry of Telecommunication and Digital Infrastructure today to witness the signing of a MOU on cooperation in information technology and electronics between the two countries. Sri Lanka and India also inked a joint declaration on intent to establish an e-office light platform, and then the two ministers exchanged the signed peering agreement of National Knowledge Network of India.
I wish to make it very clear, we have come to assist, to help you to innovate, create more platform, more opportunity and more employment for your people. And I think Sri Lanka has a great potential to create your innovative mind for data innovation, data analysis. What is important is that we have to accelerate, we have to collaborate, above all we have to mutually strengthen. The initiative, enterprise and innovation of India will always be available for the people of Sri Lanka. I want to assure you.
Both 3G, 4G technologies cover in excess over 75% in Sri Lanka. 5G connectivity is already available in Sri Lanka. It has been tested. 2/3 of Sri Lanka is fiber optic enabled. We are going the right speeds and we needed all the support, and we keep on looking to India to be better. And you always say we love challenging India, not in that sense, but in sporting sense. When push comes to shove, when it's in a tournament, on a World Cup, you'll always beat them. So Sri Lanka has always done well when it comes to push comes to shove.
Later, the Indian Union Minister called on President Maithripala Sirisena at the Presidential Secretariat. During discussions, President Sirisena highlighted the importance of strengthening relations between the two countries in the field of information technology. The Indian minister meanwhile commended the progress Sri Lanka has made in IT. Later in the day, Union Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad also met with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. During his meeting with the Premier, Ravi Shankar Prasad revealed that the Unified Mobile Application for New Age Governance, an initiative by the Indian and Sri Lankan Prime Ministers, is successfully operational. During the discussion, they had also focused on several other aspects including cyber security.
Let's move on to the latest on the election. President Maithripala Sirisena reiterates that he will take legal action on wrongdoers without any delay. The president was addressing an election rally in Homagama yesterday.
The SLFP organised another election rally in line with the upcoming local government election in Homagama yesterday. Chairman of the SLFP, President Maithripala Sirisena, was warmly welcomed by supporters on arrival.
Some said the President's Commission was appointed to bury the truth. We'd be able to see what had happened when the report is presented in Parliament on the 17th. Even before presenting the report, people criticized that it was delayed by a week. That was because the Attorney General's instructions on the matter were sought. The report mentions recommendations which require documents from the central bank and other relevant institutions as evidence. If the report was made available, the respondents would have spent the money they earned through this to make changes to cover up that evidence. I will do everything in my power to bring any wrongdoer before the law despite their political affiliations. From my time as the health minister, cigarette and drug multinational companies have always been cross with me. All the drug racketeers have been cross with me for launching the national anti-drug campaign. It isn't an easy task to follow through by appointing these presidential commissions, but I have faith in the people. Secretaries, chairmen and other members attached to the new party of the SLFP claim that they have no affiliations with the said party. But then they request the public to vote for another party. What sort of a political principle is this? If they really do have a political backbone, they should sever ties with the SLFP and then form the new party.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa says that the current president needs to understand that there are repercussions when associating the wrong type of individuals. He made this remark at the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna public rally held in Panadura last evening.
Another public rally organised by the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna ahead of the upcoming local government election was held in Arangala Malabe this evening as well. Here, parliamentarians representing the joint opposition as well as other parties contesting under Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna joined the rally.
During the tenure of Mahinda Rajapaksa, a dollar was 131 rupees. Now a dollar is 155 rupees and 56 cents. When you cast your vote to the flower bud in the upcoming election, you will once again bring a leader like Mahinda Rajapaksa who created an era in which standard of living was affordable.
Meanwhile, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa received a warm welcome at the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna public rally held in Pandudara last evening.
On my way here, I was listening to the news on the radio. They said that the president cancelled the circular on bars. I predicted that he would. He would take the credit of cancelling the regulation after it was passed. The budget 2018 allowed the reduction of the price of beer. After this occurred, the president goes to the parliament and orders that they should once again increase the price. Did it happen? He also says this regime is a heap of garbage. Who joined this heap of garbage? Is it us who joined this heap of garbage? Now he is associating someone similar, which is Ranil Wickremesinghe. Did you all see how he behaved inside the parliament?
Different views were expressed by politicians of both the governing party as well as the opposition on the current political issues today as well.
How did Ravi Karunanika get a copy of the report? If so, we also need to have one. The stance of the UNP on the Bond Commission is completely wrong because they think the commission was appointed to attack the United National Party. They sling the last bit of mud through the Bond Commission. I was criticized, saying I wrote books. We didn't yet start the election campaign of the UNP. We'll do it by hook or by crook. A serious theft happens for the first time in the world. It wasn't under Mahinda Rajapaksa's government that this theft happened. It happened under the rule of Maithripala Sirisena, under good governance, which was appointed against theft. Isn't the UNP enraged by this? It's not easy with our members either. They were in the opposition for 20 years and they started stealing. That's the truth. Even though I lose my seat or chased out of the party, that's the truth. Therefore, catching the thieves is a responsibility of the government and an election promise.
In the meantime, views were also expressed on the president stating the circular on relaxed liquor sale time schedule as well as the gazette notification on allowing female employees to work in liquor stores will be withdrawn.
We know that such a decision won't be taken in the government without any discussion. But what happened? After 2 days, the president in Agalawattu says he cancels it. The circular can't be cancelled in a rally. We doubt if they do this according to a plan. A ministry takes a decision, then the president reverts it. We remember this happening a couple of times now. How many circulars issued by the Ministry of Finance were riveted by the president? Ranil Wickremesinghe works ahead of the president. What's the use of the government if gazettes are issued without the president knowing about them? What did the government do as soon as the election was scheduled? To open the bars till 10 at night and allowing women to work in bars. These are the jobs that are created by this government. The president can't revert that decision. It can't be done only by the Minister of Finance. The president was able to remove the finance minister if he didn't do anything that he was asked to do. The president can take off the excise department, which is under the Ministry of Finance. The hint given by president to take over the excise department is a timely decision.
More on the election. The Court of Appeal postponed the examining the petitions filed by political parties with regard to rejection of their local government nomination papers. These petitions were related to nominations submitted to 8 local government bodies and the Maharagama Urban Council.
The petitions filed by several political parties on their nomination papers being rejected were scheduled to be examined by the panel of judges consisting of President of Appeal Court LTB Deideniya and Justice Shiran Gunaratne today. However, they postponed the examination until tomorrow due to Justice Shiran Gunaratne taking part in the process following President of Appeal Court receiving a promotion at the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court ruled to reject examining the fundamental rights petition filed by the SLFP after their nomination paper submitted to Dehiyatta Kandiya Pradesh Sabha was rejected. A JVP election campaign office in Amanpola in Kurunagala was vandalized by a group of unidentified individuals. Meanwhile, election campaign office of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna for Baddegama was declared open by parliamentarian Mohan De Silva yesterday. An election campaign office of United Progressive Alliance was declared open at Vallavatta under the patronage of Minister of National Coexistence, Dialogue and Official Language, Mano Ganesan today.
Let's move on to one of our headline stories. The largest seizure of cocaine by Sri Lankan authorities was destroyed in public today in the presence of President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe in Katunayake. This is considered the first time when a stack of narcotics in custody has been destroyed.
The Police Narcotic Bureau and custom officers confiscated the stack of cocaine on 9th of December in 2016 while it was being transported by the MSC Pablo vessel. It was sailing to Mundra port in India from Ecuador via Sri Lanka and Belgium. The stack, which weighs 928.229 kilograms and estimated to be over 162 million rupees, were found being concealed between logs inside one of the containers. Accordingly, following the rules issued by the Colombo Chief Magistrate, it was decided to destroy the stack of cocaine at an area located in the Katunayake investment zone. The process was carried out under the inspection of Colombo Chief Magistrate Lal Ranasinghe Bandara, where President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe were also present at the occasion. Steps were taken to liquefy the stack and the liquid was transported to Puttalam by a special vehicle with GPS. Later, the liquid was incinerated in a fire that reached 2000 degrees Celsius.
This is considered to be the largest capture of cocaine in Sri Lanka. We gladly declare that the steps taken by the President and the Prime Minister to make this a country devoid of narcotics is made a reality by these arrestings. During a cabinet meeting, the President questioned me on the status of the narcotics that were seized recently. Accordingly, we decided to destroy them in front of the public. The value of the narcotics seized during 2015 and 2016 is 34 billion rupees. The value of the cocaine destroyed today is 16.4 billion rupees. It is half of the annual expense of the Department of Police. How strong is the narcotic racket? We take all the measures to stop this hazard. Our success we have in destroying them is for the future generations of the country.
Let's now take a look at a few other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
The national ceremony of the admission of Grade 1 students for 2018 was held under the auspices of Minister of Education Akila Viraj Karivasam today. The event was held at Isipatana College, Colombo. State Minister of Provincial Council and Local Government Shyani Vijay Wickrama is currently receiving treatment at the Peradeniya Hospital following an accident at Kadugannava. The vehicle in which the State Minister was travelling had veered off the road and collided into a tree at around 3:45 this morning. A container had veered off the road and crashed into a railing along the Southern Expressway in Baddeguda Bandaragama. No injuries were reported in the accident, which took place early this morning. 8 suspects were arrested for possession of 507 milligrams of heroin in Veyangoda and Kurase areas.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
On to business news now. Deputy Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs, Dr. Harsha De Silva, is of the view that major amendments to Sri Lanka's monetary laws should be introduced in order to establish governance and autonomy of the central bank. Speaking to reporters following an event in Colombo, the Deputy Minister added that such reforms and revisions should be introduced as soon as possible. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka too repeatedly outlined that Sri Lanka will have to introduce considerable changes to the existing mandate of the central bank through necessary legal reforms.
According to the central bank's roadmap for 2018, the regulator is working towards implementing a flexible inflation targeting framework by 2020 in order to conduct monetary policy in a proactive and forward-looking manner. The central bank too is of the view that its mandate and credibility is essential for successful adoption of flexible inflation targeting regime, as there is considerable evidence from around the world that weak legal mandates together with inadequate autonomy of central banks hinder the success of FIT. The 2018 roadmap stated that it is vital to shield monetary policy from fiscal dominance, to institutionalize the autonomy of the central bank, and in this regard, a strong legal and institutional mandate for the central bank is expected to ensure a clear separation between monetary and fiscal policy as part of the transition to the FIT.
In order to go into a flexible inflation targeting regime, these revisions have to be done because there has been fiscal dominance of monetary policy. The public debt department usually has power over EPF activity. That has been a conflict that has existed in the central bank since the day the EPF was introduced. So either you bring in major amendments to the law or you bring in a completely new monetary law act. Whatever it is, we need to ensure that the central bank operates the way it ought to within the mandate, the governance, the autonomy and the accountability structure that would be world class. We invited the International Monetary Fund and we requested that they help us to make these necessary changes as quickly as possible. And what they told us was that they have already been working on these same issues.
Brent crude oil prices rose to $70 a barrel today, supported by ongoing output cuts led by OPEC and Russia, and ignoring a rise in US and Canadian drilling activities that points to higher future output in Northern America. US West Texas intermediate crude futures were at $64.53 a barrel, up 23 cents.
Meanwhile, global stock markets were mixed today after Wall Street's strong finish last week. Asian markets finished with modest gains except for China, as shares slipped in Shanghai and Shenzhen after the country's Banking Regulatory Commission issued a notice over the weekend calling for stricter oversight over financial risks. European stocks got off to a sluggish start following 2 weeks of gains, with cyclical stocks among the biggest decliners. Wall Street was on a roll as the fourth quarter earnings season kicked off with solid results from banks and robust retail sales, driving investor optimism about economic growth. The Dow amassed gains of 2% last week, while the Nasdaq gained 1.8% and the S&P 500 1.6%. The dollar index showed no sign of bouncing early on Monday, instead edging down to a fresh trove at 90.622.
Let's move on to international news now. North and South Korea held working-level talks today in the Truce village of Panmunjom to discuss the participation in the Winter Olympics to be held in Pyeongchang from February 5th to the 25th. North Korea agreed last week to send a delegation to the Games in the south, easing months of tensions between the neighbors. Talks today were focused mainly on the artistic group the North would like to send to South Korea. The two sides will conduct a separate meeting on Wednesday to discuss other matters pertaining to the North's delegation to the Games. However, details of the diplomatic complicated plan is still being ironed out. Well, India launched a total of 31 small satellites into space on Friday, with half of them for the US and the remainder for China, Finland, France, South Korea and the UK. The 31 satellites were sent to orbit, marking India's 100th satellite launch as Prime Minister Narendra Modi seeks to project the country as a global low-cost provider of services in space. India's space program has a budget of around $4 billion and Modi's government hopes the latest launch will improve India's prospect of winning a larger share of the more than $300 billion global space industry. Let's take you to the United States now. U.S. President Donald Trump's derogatory word to describe African nations last week sparked outrage over the weekend. The most comments over the issue labeled Trump as a racist. However, addressing the White House press poll at the Trump International Golf Club last night, he stated that he is not a racist.
Trump's derogatory word to describe immigrants from African nations sparked a massive row, which saw various individuals voicing their displeasure over the comment. Addressing the press on issues of immigrants arriving in the country and the accusations of being called a racist, The president had this to say.
I think you have a lot of sticking points, but they're all Democrat sticking points, because we are ready, willing, and able to make a deal, but they don't want to. They don't want security at the border. We have people pouring in. They don't want security at the border. They don't want to stop drugs. And they want to take money away from our military, which we cannot do. So, did you see what various senators in the room said about my comments? They weren't made. No, I'm not a racist. I am the least racist person you have ever interviewed. That I can tell you.
Meanwhile, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has described Trump's Middle East peace efforts as the slap of the century. This was in response to both the decision to declare Jerusalem Israel's capital and the threat to cut aid if the Palestinians reject peace talks. He stated in a speech at a meeting of senior Palestinian officials that the move had disqualified the US as a peacemaker.
Well, here is more international news in brief.
At least 35 people are reported to be killed after a double suicide bombing in the Iraqi capital Baghdad, the second attack in 3 days. More than 90 are said to be injured in the suicide attack in Derana Square in the city's center. The Iraqi Interior Ministry said the death toll was likely to rise as more bodies were being recovered. A mezzanine ceiling at a stock exchange building in Jakarta, Indonesia has collapsed, with reports stating that dozens are injured. A number of people were seen on stretchers being carried from the building. Philippine authorities have raised the alert level over Mount Mayon, an active volcano known for its deadly eruptions. The volcano began spewing ash and rock over the weekend, and on Monday morning magma could be seen in its crater. India and Israel have hailed the dawn of a new era in their relations after signing key deals in defense, agriculture and aviation sectors. The deals were announced after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held talks with his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi in New Delhi today.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
On to sports now. In the first match of the Tri-Nation One-Day International Series, Bangladesh won the toss and elected to field first against Zimbabwe. However, Zimbabwe were bowled out for a mere 170 in 49 overs.
It was a tough start to the series for Zimbabwe as their batsmen kept tumbling at regular intervals. Only managing 170 in 49 overs, it was never going to be a defendable total. Bangladesh's Shakib Al Hasan was at the top of his game, picking up 3 for 43 in his 10 overs, while Mustafizur Rahman and Rubal Hossain picked up 2 wickets each. Sikandar Raza was the top scorer for Zimbabwe with a well-played 52. In reply, Bangladesh reached the low target of 171 in just 28.3 overs, with Tamim Iqbal remaining not out on 84 of just 93 deliveries and Mushfiqur Rahim on 14. The second match of the series between Sri Lanka and Zimbabwe will be on the 17th, starting at 11:30 a.m.
A bit of football now. Mohamed Faisal came back to haunt his former club as Colombo FC beat Renown SC to clinch the 2018 Championship League title at the Racecourse Stadium yesterday. Colombo FC took Renown SC 1-0 at the title decider for the third time running. In the final, both teams had opportunities from either end, but Mohamed Faisal was the only player who found the back of the net in the first half. The goal was scored in just the 37th minute of the game. Unbeaten in 16 games before the finals, Renown SC had all the firepower to beat Colombo FC, but Colombo FC held their composure to clinch their third title in a row during the intense second half.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Well, Katharina Chang is at the Other Derana Weather Centre with your forecast first evening edition.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecasts First. Now, temperatures are to vary between 18 and 31 degrees Celsius over the next 24 hours. Now, if you take a look at the map, you can see some clear skies are forecast for the next 24 hours. This means we can expect some sunny weather conditions in the northern region of the island. And if you move downwards, favourable weather conditions are expected in the cities of Colombo, Galle, Matra and Kandy. That is it from the Weather Centre tonight. It's now time to take a quick look at your city-by-city forecast.
And that is a part of your world tonight right here on Other Derana 24/7. I'm Mahesh Johnny. First at 9, we'll return tomorrow at the same time. Be sure to join us then. But before we go, we are going to show you a video tribute by a foreigner who visited Sri Lanka and his view of this beautiful paradise island and what it really is. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.